Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and today in the arena we are going to be on the free-to-play account facing the daunting task of making something out of the Boros Legion. As sad as it is, right now the Boros Legion is in a terrible state. Their deck is basically a combination of reasonably but not greatly statted aggressive creatures with almost no source of significant card advantage and very situational removal spells. This leads to the guild being quite easily among the worst to play for the new player experience, which is too bad because it's also a really cool deck. I'm going to try to make something of the build. The best thing going in Boros that you can be right now is Feather. Unfortunately, you don't get many feathers. I have one of them that I opened with some packs, and you just don't get them in the new player experience, but I think I'm going to do my best to build a bad feather deck with only one or two actual payoffs and hope to win the games where I draw those cards. That shows you how low and how much distaste I have for the traditional play pattern of the deck, which is to play a Healer's Hawk or a Goblin Banneret and then play a Boros Challenger or a Sunhome Stalwart and use the Mentor mechanic to make these one power point bigger. It's just not good enough for where Magic is at right now. Even in the Play 2020 event, it's a very mediocre strategy that relies on the opponent basically being a limp duck and having nothing going on. So I'm going to be trying to build around things like Dreadhorde Arcanist and Feather, even though I don't have many, which rather than going wide and playing a bunch of small creatures, I'm going to try to make one creature into a battleship. I'm going to try to make it into a very large creature and hope that is good enough. So we're looking for instants or sorceries that make creatures bigger, and then we're going to look for good creatures to put those on. I do think that Healer's Hawk fits the bill. Let's switch to this view. I think that Healer's Hawk fits the bill because of lifelink, which on its own can be very strong. And once you have Healer's Hawk, you can look into cards like Take Heart, which is +2/+2 until end of turn, 1 life for each attacking creature. And then there's a Johnny's Pridemate, which gets bigger whenever you gain life. So already I'm kind of moving in this white creature direction. This is Apostle of Purifying Light. It has protection from black, meaning if we're up against a black deck, anything that they do can't touch this card. Black is a reasonably popular color. This is not a good card if we don't play against black. I feel so desperate playing the Boros deck that I'm actually going to run Apostle of Purifying Light and hope, just hope, that we come up against black. So if I have this card and I can put a whole bunch of cards like Battlefield Promotion to make it bigger, putting it a +1/+1 counter, giving it first strike till end of turn and gaining 2 life, that this card alone will carry us with its protection from black ability. Moment of Heroism is a fun pump spell. It gives +2/+2 and lifelink until end of turn. It's okay. I think that Take Heart is potentially better, and I think I've got enough +2/+2 effects that this isn't quite worth it. But we'll see. I may come back to it. Battalion Foot Soldier says that when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for any number of cards, name the Foot Soldier, reveal them, and put them into your hand. I'm tempted to try this, mostly because it makes sure I always have a creature. It helps ensure that I'll have a creature on the board rather often to put my pump spells upon, which the biggest problem that can come up to these decks is you just no longer have a creature and you have all these ways to make creatures bigger. We can do the Ajani Strength of the Pride because we're already playing with some Pridemate stuff. Angel of Grace is a 5/4 flash flyer. I almost feel like I need to run something like this for more power and because I need a surprise in my deck. And I think this card out of Boros would certainly surprise some people as it doesn't normally go into the build. Another pump spell we have here is Infuriate, +3/+3 or +3/+2 until end of turn. Pretty strong, so we'll throw that in and see where it ends up. Shock gets played in nearly all of these decks, as I think you've seen by now that we're constantly playing Shock. Chandra's Pyro Helix is pretty fun. You can deal 1 damage to your creature, 1 damage to Feather, and bounce it. But I'm curious, I don't feel like I should be leaning into Feather that hard. And it only does 1 damage, which isn't particularly great. Burning Prophet gets an extra +1/+0 and a scry every time you cast a non-creature spell. And since we are running pump spells, it's a natural fit. Dreadhorde Arcanist is a card that can cast our pump spells out of the graveyard, making it a great card to run. We already have some lava coils. We may add more. I'm going to keep this card in mind as we go. I don't like to run Runaway Steamkin in decks that are not mostly red, nearly entirely red, so you're staying on the bench. Unchained Berserker goes in the deck because of protection from white. If we come up against a white deck and happen to draw it, maybe it can steal the game. Uncaged Fury gives a creature +1/+1 and double strike until end of turn. Double strike means it does damage twice, once as first strike and once as regular, and that's a lot. I'm curious to try out Uncaged Fury and see if we can find a great spot for it. We have a big Chandra, which we may want to play. I can definitely see this deck getting into situations where it needs an over-the-top, super strong play to win a game, so I'll consider Chandra. Temple of Triumph certainly goes in the deck. A rare Scryland in the right colors should pretty much always go into your builds. And Windscarred Crag gains a life. It's a strict upgrade to those guild gates. So get those out of your deck and get the Windscarred Crag in. Here's our one copy of Feather the Redeemed that we opened in a pack. If you don't have this, I apologize in advance that I'm kind of building a deck that you can't quite get to, but I'm doing the best I can with my account. I have to. It's the only way. We could have a third Sky Knight Legionnaire, which can get in damage at hasty speed and can be very helpful. And I don't see anything in my artifacts. All right. We've got 91 cards. Some things have to come out. I'm going to start removing cards I really don't like. I can take out Take Heart because Infuriate is pretty much strictly better. Battlefield Promotion gains life, which works with the Pride Mate, and Healer's Hawk gains life, which works with the Pride Mate. So, sort of a Pride Mate deck. I'm curious how much else, what other life gain do we have, and is it enough to make it worth it? It doesn't seem like I have that many ways to gain life in the entire build, so I think that's gotta go. Too bad. I still like the Healer's Hawk because when we pump it, we gain lots of life. Goblin Banneret, not nearly as excited about. This card on the ground gets chumped very easily. It can be very good with a ton of mana, but I just don't see it, and the creatures on the ground are just so weak. It's so hard to strengthen them. Sunhome Stalwart, not bad. Sure Strike is a pump spell that we can run. Unchained Berserker, we talked about protection. Challenger is decent, we'll see how long it lasts, but the Guild Mage definitely goes. I'm not a fan of Response Resurgence. It's a nice rare in the Boros colors, but the creature has to be blocking or has to be attacking for it to target, and I'd rather have better removal like Lava Coil and Justice Strike to shoot something when I want to shoot something. Rock Charger is certainly underpowered and can be cut, along with Act of Treason. The Battalion Foot Soldier idea came and went just as quickly. I don't think that's where we need to be. The Tectonic Rift can go. Truefire Captain is a card I don't like very much, but it's good specifically against red, which our other cards don't have protection from red. So maybe we save this just as a way to get a whole bunch more damage on the opponent. I don't like Light of the Legion. I think the card is definitely rather weak. And as I said, I like Angel of Grace to surprise the opponent because I feel like this deck is going to need a surprise to pull it off. You see we have an absurd number of 2-drops. I'm going to cut a few things. I think the Stalwart can go. I also think that the Challenger can go. It's tough. I actually like the Challenger more than other things. Maybe we go to just 1 or 2 Apostles. Yeah, just 1 Apostle, and hopefully we'll draw it when the opponent is red. Just get lucky. Getting lucky is great. We'll increase on Infuriate, Shock, Integrity, Intervention. Those are all fine, whereas I'm not as fan of Sure Strike. I like my pump spells cheap and efficient. We have 2 Lava Coils and 2 Justice Strikes to take out larger creatures, and I don't think we need more removal than that. The Ajani can go. We already cut the other Pride Mates. These Legionnaires just don't quite fit in. What's our creature count like? 22? They don't quite match what we're going for here. It's nice to have nice hasty flyers, but it's not too much. Just doesn't get enough damage through for me. After that, we're looking at cards like Battlefield Promotion, Uncaged Fury. I think I'll cut one of the promotions. The Integrity Intervention is nice because you can dual threat it and also deal damage to something. So maybe it should just replace cards like Lava Coil. We can just run like 1 of those each. And then we have all the Infuriates, all the Healer's Hawks. We have Apostle of the Purifying Light, Burning Prophet, Dreadhorde Arcanist. Yeah, this could be an absolute train wreck. I do promise I tried the version that most people would immediately jump to, which is the Mentor aggro deck. I found it so lacking that I'm willing to try this. So please believe me that I'm not going in completely blind on this one. Let's go see how this version does, and if we want to change it back to the other version and build a Mentor version, we always can. You've seen me switch it up mid-video before. I might have to do it again. It happens. All right, do I run 26 land in a deck like this? I feel like I should with all these 4-drops and such, but it's not that hard to draw that many lands. We've seen decks flood out with 24 before, so I think we'll try 24. Who do we bring back? We'll bring back the Lava Coil and the Justice Strike. Creature decks are everywhere. Having the right removal at the right time is important. All right, Boros Legion. May we draw Feather and Aurelia and our powerful cards early, often, and may it work out. Our hand does things. We have an Arcanist and a Challenger along with 2 removal spells. So let's keep it and see what happens. We have a good mix of land that will cast most of our spells. Considering that I don't have a 3-drop here, I'm going to play the Mountain because whatever our opponent, if they play anything worth shocking, I wish to shock it. To keep the board nice and clear so I can get ahead on tempo. The opponent shocks for Blood Crypt and plays Dreadhorde Butcher. That is certainly something worth shocking before it gets bigger. We played Dreadhorde Butcher in our Rakdos deck, and it grows every time it hits you. So that is something that needs to die. So now we could play the Dreadhorde Arcanist, which can immediately get a shock back, and threatens to do so. We also have an Infuriate to go with it. I really want the Arcanist to live. And the more I want the Arcanist to live, the better it is to play a Challenger first. You have to anticipate your opponent will have something to kill your first good threat, especially in the colors black and red. They always kill things. So let's make the opponent deal with this Challenger. Next turn we'll have the Arcanist. Interesting. The opponent uses Carnival to deal damage to me, then light up the stage. That doesn't kill the Challenger. The opponent gets another land and plays a Footlight Fiend. That went okay. The Footlight Fiend, when it dies, does 1 damage to any target. We could exile it, but it's a pretty small creature, all things considered. Let's go ahead and just attack the opponent with our Challenger for 2 damage. Then let's play our Dreadhorde Arcanist. And I'm going to pay 2 life to play the Sacred Foundry and have a mana open. This means that Infuriate is available. And the +3/+2 from an Infuriate can help make sure that our Arcanist stays alive if the opponent targets it with a removal spell. The Footlight Fiend wishes to attack. We could block and the opponent would target some things. I think I'm better off just taking the damage here. The Footlight Fiend might point the damage at the Arcanist, forcing me to play the Infuriate, but I want to play the Infuriate on offense, not on defense. I want the extra damage. So here's another Footlight Fiend. And combined with Judith the Scourge Diva, who we played in our Rakdos deck, it's a very problematic card. So we're going to have to exile that. Let's do it. Exile the Scourge Diva. Now we can attack with our 2 creatures. And we'll stack our Mentor trigger on top of our Arcanist trigger so that this can play a 2-drop if we wish. Actually, that didn't work out quite the way I expected. I wonder if I had stacked it the other way. Or if this is just the way it has to be. So now we can play our shock, and we can shock this out of the way at least so it can't block. And the 1 damage isn't very relevant anywhere, so it will go face. I could Infuriate now, or I could save it. Red often has a lot of burn damage, so saving it sounds nice to me. Saving the Infuriate for a huge attack next turn, potentially. And it will also help us cast the Lava Coil or another Infuriate out of the graveyard. Bedevil. Well, Infuriate can't save you from that. How disappointing. But we have Chandra, we have 5 lands. The goal is to stay on the front foot. If we stay on the front foot long enough, eventually Chandra can probably come down, make the opponent miserable. Temple of Triumph lets us scry, probably going to use that, but let's attack with our Challenger and see what our opponent does. We have a 4-mana pump ability on the Challenger, and the opponent's going to take the damage. So let's pump the mana into the Challenger to deal 3 instead of 2. Then we'll play our Scryland. And this is all setting up so that Chandra can come down next turn. We took the shields down on Infuriate, but if the opponent spends their turn killing our Challenger with a 3 damage or more spell, we're happy about that. Then Chandra can do the Chandra things. And there's Carnage. Well, we'll discard the land and the Infuriate. 3 damage to target player, and they discard 2 cards. At least we get to hang on to our Chandra for one more moment. And we didn't draw the land to caster, but we do have Legion Warboss, which makes a 1/1 haste, which we can mentor right away. Oh no, our opponent has Shock. You can tell by the stick right there. Alright. The opponent has the answers, but they're on top deck mode. We're on top deck mode, but a land becomes a Chandra. Their land doesn't become anything yet. And there it is. So with Chandra here, we're definitely making an emblem. And the opponent runs away from the Chandra. I told you we might want a big old Planeswalker to finish some games on its own when our main strategy doesn't quite work. Alright, we've got a lot of 2-drop plays, but guess that's what you can hope for with the deck. Island. Alright, we'll open on a mountain, see what our opponent does. Blue and black. Thought Erasure, of course. Well, our hand is pretty good against Thought Erasure, truth be told. Whatever they take, it's not that different from everything else we have here. The opponent chooses the True Fire Captain. Now they're looking at their top card, and they put Agent of Treachery into the graveyard. There's some kind of a Reanimator deck. This is where, if we had the Apostle of Purifying Light, it would be very nice. Well, let's cast our Swiftblade Vindicator. Having the pump spell available to go with the Swiftblade can amount to a lot of damage if the opponent doesn't kill this right away. And the opponent passes the turn, certainly implying that they plan to deal with the Vindicator. Let's attack and see if they make a move. In a shocking development, the Vindicator is dead. Alright, here's a Challenger. Should at least keep the challenge up. The opponent most certainly plans to reanimate this using something like Connive Concoct and play it early. Another Thought Erasure, just picking apart our hand, taking any cards we might actually want to play with. Leaving the True Fire Captain tells us that the opponent certainly plans to steal the True Fire Captain. So let's not give it to him. Let's pump our Challenger and beat them up with our Challenger a little bit. Down to 17 is definitely a bad look for us. A third Thought Erasure. Well, some games weren't meant to be played. Quasi-Duplicate can target the Agent of Treachery. We'll play the Hawk. Why not? Gain a life, say go. Narset, Parter of Veils. So this is what the opponent's going to use to try to find a reanimation spell to bring the Agent of Treachery out of the graveyard. And they whiff. They missed entirely. That's a big deal. That's Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. Alright, we should do some lethal math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not enough for lethal. So we should focus on killing this Narset. So here is Aurelia. We don't have to kill the Narset, we just have to hit it for 2. So I can attack it with the Challenger. So the creature I'm going to well, no, we'll let the Hawk do the work then, because we can put the Challenger bonus here. The Challenger can go up here, and then this can get mentored. And the Mentor, this keeps the Narset from ticking down next turn. And this threatens to be a lethal attack if the opponent doesn't answer the board right now. Of course, if they steal my Aurelia, the sadness will be intense. You can thought erase a lot of things, but you can't thought erase the top of my deck. And if I draw a mythic rare, sometimes you just lose. We got pretty lucky, but sometimes you have to. It's worth mentioning that I'm playing in the standard 2020 event. This event may not be available when you watch this video. It makes everybody play with cards from the last 4 sets, which most of our cards are from those, so it's very easy for us. And you earn free XP, and it's a free event to enter. So as such, it's 100% a slam dunk for your free-to-play accounts. If you have something like this available, you should play in it. Well, this is rough because our Healer's Hawk doesn't come out on turn 1, but I can't shuffle away the Arcanist and the Aurelia, 2 of the best cards we have. And our opponent opens with a Gutter Bones on turn 1, so we know we're up for a fight. Our opponent's looking to be aggressive and stay aggressive. Vampire of the Dire Moon. Cheap, black, angry creatures. So we have a choice to make. We could deploy the Healer's Hawk. We could also deploy the Challenger, a 2/3, to take these creatures on. Or we could deploy the Arcanist, but we don't have any spells in the graveyard. It's very likely that the first thing we play will die. We don't have a 3-drop right now, so it's not that important that we get this Windscarred Crag out, which would make us lean towards the Hawk. So I think I like going for Boros Challenger here. Next turn we can play the Windscarred Crag and the Arcanist. Or we can play the Arcanist and the Healer's Hawk if we choose to go that route. This also plays around the black removal spell Disfigure, which I think our opponent has based on the stick. You see kind of that things slow down when we make plays. So that usually means there's a 1 black spell. And this attack would imply the same. So I don't like trading this for a Disfigure. I think here we can take some damage and force our opponent to keep having Disfigure open. And see if we can draw it out of our opponent in a different way. And our opponent says go. Interesting. So we could play a Feather here. Would probably play right into a Murder. That's not great. We'd also play the tap land and the Arcanist and have Aurelia and Truefire Captain as an option next turn. But I want to save the Feather until I draw a Pump Spell, something to play with her. Alright, let's play the Arcanist. Let's say go. Force the opponent to continue to try to figure out how to play around with their Disfigure. We can force it out of them on their turn, using up what might end up being an important mana on their turn if they attack by double blocking the Gutter Bones. And our opponent has chosen to play Knight of the Ebon Legion, which is a very annoying card to deal with. We could also say go, and an attack could pump up our Arcanist. Okay, so the opponent's playing it careful. Here we go. So with this draw, what we can do is we can shock away the Knight of the Ebon Legion, and if the opponent lets me attack with the Arcanist, which they would have to have an instant speed removal spell to stop, we get to shock away the Gutter Bones or the Vampire of the Dire Moon as well. The downside is we might lose something because of a Disfigure, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. This Knight of the Ebon Legion, of course, we've seen before, is a very strong card and needs to go. Here we go. Now, I stacked it different ways before, but I still think that's the right way to go. Doesn't matter because shock is on 1. The opponent could keep the shock from coming back by using the Disfigure now, which would be really smart. Disfiguring the Arcanist here might keep the shock from getting cast. But it depends on how well they know the rules, and how well I know the rules. Some of these interactions are pretty niche. And the opponent has chosen Disfigure on the Challenger. That won't keep Shock from coming back. But does our opponent have another Disfigure? Disfigure Tribal? Indeed. Wow. So no Shock comes back. Now the opponent can eat our creatures alive, but it did cost them both Disfigures. Death Touch means that we lose our Arcanist. Now we can play Feather the Redeemed out of our graveyard, though. And it appears that our graveyard's just going to stay animated forever, since it didn't get to cast that Shock. Rotting Regisaur. Big boy. Big dude. Can we draw something to do something about it? Aurelia is very strong, and can potentially race the Regisaur. A Healer's Hawk can chump block the Regisaur and gain a life, which is really nice. I think what I want to do, and also when this blocks, the opponent can take 7 because of it. So I think what we're going to do is initiate a race. And in that race, I want my Aurelia on the battlefield. I want Feather to hit for 5. We're going to take 7, probably 8 because of the Vampire of the Dire Moon. The next turn we play the True Fire Captain, or we play Tajik and Healer's Hawk, depending how I feel. And then we block the Regisaur while hitting for another 8. So let's race. We really need the opponent not to draw Murder. Drawing a Murder in this spot would be so good. And you see already they're picking their target, so the opponent has the nuts, is what we call it. When they have exactly what they need at every turn, and that is where we're at. We can still fight out of it with the right draw, but it's going to be really hard. Swift Justice is the right draw. What else we can play this turn? We can get a Hawk on the field. Now we don't want to use this until our opponent is forced to discard this card, because as soon as we get rid of that card, like the Rotting Regisaur forcing them to discard the card is a big deal. Cards matter, even if it is just a land. And now we'll let our opponent figure out their attack. They have determined to go in with everybody. So I could block the Healer's Hawk on something like the Gutterbones and gain a life and take less damage, but I don't like that play. The opponent just gets the Gutterbones back. I could trade it off for this Vampire of the Dire Moon, but my life gain's more important than the opponent's, and we can mentor this Hawk. So I don't want to block with the Hawk. But what I do need to make sure gets blocked is this Regisaur. So I'm going to Justice Strike it first, just in case we would want to chump afterwards. And that did not happen, so feeling good. Okay, here we go. Tajik. So here's the play. Feather says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets a creature you control, exile it. Instead of putting it in the graveyard, if you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the end step. Basically, these kind of cards keep coming back to our hand over and over. We want to mentor the Hawk, but we also want the life gain from the Hawk with the Infuriate. So attack, mentor the Hawk, but before damage is dealt, Infuriate targets the Hawk, makes it even bigger, and Feather brings Infuriate back to our hand, and we gain 5 life from a Mega Hawk. And now our opponent is down to 6, facing potential lethal next turn. This is how you do it. Vampire of the Dire Moon still gaining life. It's been getting in there all game. And here's Spawn of Mayhem, a 4/4 flying creature. Mythic rare. We saw Spawn a little bit from some of our games. So, now what? This can mentor our Hawk friend again, and can potentially gain first strike. I'm just wondering if I want to play the Burning Prophet too to gain a scry, but I don't think that's worth it. And the opponent's scooping it up. So let's see, if the opponent blocked here, they would still take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not lethal. It's interesting. But if I left the Spawn alive, it does 1 damage to each opponent on upkeep, so I think I could make lethal out of it. I think I could have found the lethal line. Well, let's hope we're against white for the Unchained Berserker to be good. or that the Dreadhorde Arcanist goes crazy. We get to open on Windscared Crag. We're up 21-20, immediately asserting dominance. And it looks like red. So against red, the True Fire Captains are a lot better. This Unchained Berserker won't be very good. But I'd much rather make sure that my Arcanist lives than the Berserker. So I'm going to play the Berserker now. And we'll see if the opponent has a way to kill it. If the opponent attacks, I will certainly trade. And Runaway Steamkin on the... Just right there, man. Right there. That's not a removal spell. We really needed a way to kill that Steamkin. Without it, I don't know quite what we'll do, other than try to hit the opponent really hard with Infuriated Dreadhorde Arcanist. And here's a Spitter. The Steamkin starts to grow. We probably have a window here of 1 or 2 more turns to draw the perfect spell to deal with this. Ooh, but what if the opponent attacks? They did. Wow. So we get to block with the Arcanist. Pump the Arcanist with the Infuriate, which the opponent didn't prepare for there. And eat the Steamkin. Wow. Now we get to play a Hawk, and we get to bring back Infuriate, which is glorious. Might as well. Your Arcanist only lives so long, and this lets us hit for 4. We certainly need to damage our opponent a good amount in this matchup. And here's a Healer's Hawk. And we'll pass the turn. Infuriate on Healer's Hawk, of course, can be wonderful. A lot of lifelink, which can help against red. But it's not the end-all be-all. You still have to overpower them. If they gain enough advantage from a card like Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, you can still lose. But I think we're going to take this out. So I actually like using Infuriate on the Healer's Hawk here, because we can block with a 4-power lifelinker, kill the Spitter, next turn bring it back with the Arcanist, and kill the Chandra. Nom. Happy Hawk. Alright, getting close to that Chandra. Our Chandra. We're also getting close to your Chandra. Let's send the Hawk over here. We plan to Infuriate it so it deals 4. And Arcanist up here to deal 1. And another 4 life, which is good. You're toast. We'll see what the opponent has to follow up with. They're a deck full of powerful effects, and that is definitely a powerful effect that deals a lot of damage with Cavalcade of Calamity. We're going to take 6 damage haste for 4 mana. Justice Strike off the top. We don't have any more spells in the graveyard. I don't want to trade the Hawk for one of these. I'd like to keep gaining the life. So Hawk goes in. And we say go. And hopefully Arcanist can play some defense here. Second Cavalcade. For crying out loud. No rest. Also, Chandra can't clean this board up. The -3 does damage to non-elemental creatures. I don't want to use the Justice Strike on one of these. Let's block the tokens in case our opponent has a way to bring this out of the graveyard, like Thunderkin Awakener. We don't want to trade for it. And a Skewer the Critics for the Arcanist. Brutal. Okay. One more play. And Skewer the Critics for my Hawk. Okay. Well, they're on empty. Do I save the Justice Strike? If I top deck a land, the Chandra Minus can kill the last creature. Let's go for it. Land. Untapped. Well, that's not bad. That first strike ability can pick off our opponent's little 1/1s. And it's a land. Do you dare attack me for 3? No, and there it is. All right, let's attack first. See if the opponent makes the mistake of blocking. Hit with that double strike. Here is Chandra, the Awakened Inferno.
Stay back. I'm an explosively good pyromancer.
So we could plus to make an emblem and try to go for the win, or we could minus to contain the board. Having a Chandra, I think the minus is right. Just
is the best way to destroy things.
our opponent needs to draw another one of those to stay in the game. It's the best top deck in their deck. Instead, they draw a land. Now we start making emblems.
Oh, looks like someone's getting a little sweaty.
We can play our Burning Prophet. Let's go, team. It's a shock to my face. Well, now I have a shock for your face as well. All right. Continue to make emblem time.
Too hot for ya.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not quite enough damage yet, but let's save this in case our opponent somehow pulls out a haste creature to go with their cavalcades. The card off the top is a concession. Wow. Two wins, more EXP. Adds to that Mastery Pass, which builds up to more gifts, such as a Guilds of Ravnica booster pack, only 200 more for that. I have been stunned by the performance of this kind of super budget feather take on Boros, but this mid-rangey strategy with some pump effects and some synergy around it has served me so much better than going the hardcore aggro mentor route that I feel like I feel really confident putting this video out there. I know I got pretty lucky in some of these games, but you don't know how bad the mentor road can be with just a few removal spells blowing up your whole strategy. Here we gave our powerful cards a chance to shine, as well as some synergy with our pump effects, and it worked out. So I hope you'll try this strategy as well. Remember, you don't have to play these decks the way they're handed to you. You can tune them and try to find the best way that works for you. Thank you for watching this video. As always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.